My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that we play in sourcing and procurement in the way that we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to give the program a follow as well as a rating. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a woman who needs little introduction, but this is a podcast and I am the host. So let's make a proper introduction. Today's guest brings with her 25 plus years of experience within the procurement and sourcing industry. She is the president and CEO of Sourcing Industry Group, also known as SIG, the one and only Dawn Tiura. Dawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
We're happy to have you as well. We were just talking about the weather, and I'm upset that you are sitting with flip-flops on, and we're sitting in a snowy Stockholm, but we'll leave that out for the day's session. I want to start with a quick and easy question that we ask a lot of our guests, something, though, that could definitely mean something to you. What exactly does sourcing and procurement mean to you?
Well, it means that the world has finally recognized what a cool profession that we're in. It is something that when we started, people thought that people went to procurement sort of to die. It was just a dead-end career. And, they sat there in front of green screens and they ordered what people told them to order. And it wasn't strategic. And now when I hear the word sourcing and procurement, I think of strategy. I think of the fact that we can impact the bottom line like no one else in the organization can. And I think it's a very powerful position and career choice for people.
Why exactly? I mean, it's interesting that you say that. Why exactly do you think that people thought or, still in some organizations, I'm sure, think of procurement in that fashion?
Yeah, obviously we're always being told that we're the bottleneck, and we always accuse legal and the rest of the organization accuses us as being the bottleneck. But in truth, we have been seen not as strategic, except I think the pandemic finally put us on the map. Everyone in the world now knows the word supply chain. Everyone understands risk.
Right.
Everyone understands, supply chain disruption. So finally, I think people are recognizing that the companies that soared during COVID did because their procurement organizations were exceptional and they found sources of supply and they were able to mitigate that risk. And so I think that plus the advent of all the cyber issues that we now face as any organization worldwide does, we can help mitigate that risk. First and foremost, to who we contract with, how we contract with them, how we do our risk assessments. So I think the board has finally recognized that procurement has a huge impact on the risk mitigation for their organization.
That's a fantastic answer. What exactly made you start your career in procurement? Is it something that you chose, or did procurement choose you, so to say?
Procurement chose me. So I'm a CPA. Mm-hmm. So it's like a chartered accountant out of the UK. So I'm a nerd, numbers nerd. I was running a private practice in Palo Alto, California, specializing in international taxation. So you can't get much more nerdy. And I had a client who was a consulting firm, and they were doing early strategic sourcing, and they knew they were driving value, but these guys were PhDs in organization development, not numbers guys. And they said, we know we're driving value, we just can't quantify it. So they asked me to come in and help them build one of the very first total cost of ownership cost models in sourcing. And so we did it for Kaiser Permanente, which is a huge hospital chain out of California. And I fell in love with sourcing. And so I went through an early midlife crisis. I sold my CPA firm, decided to go into consulting. And I made it for about 3 years. And I realized I don't make a really good employee. So then I launched my own consulting firm, Denali Group, and never looked back. And then in 2007, I had the opportunity to take over SIG. So I sold my consulting firm. I sold our staff augmentation firm, everything. And I took over SIG at that point.
Fantastic story, and a great transition into my next question as well. Our listener base is primarily European, which I know is a market that SIG is continuously growing in. I know that SIG is also a premier global network for procurement and sourcing executives. But for those who don't really know about what you guys are doing at SIG, do you mind just providing some insights into what the organization's all about?
Yeah, so I am so proud of the organization that we have grown. So we represent collectively $17 trillion of US equivalent spend. 17 trillion. So
Wow.
that has a huge impact worldwide. So it is a huge part of the GDP of the world that our folks are procuring and literally changing lives through how they source and where they source. So I'm surrounded by these incredibly brilliant people. And then about 6 years ago, I had been asked again and again by chief procurement officers. They said, we don't have modern procurement training for our folks. We have, the old fashioned supply chain, in the US it'd be ISM, over there it'd be SIPs, but we don't have a modern procurement sourcing training. So we spent about a year and over $1 million creating our first program, Certified Sourcing Professional. And from there, it has taken off. We're in 38 different countries as of last year. We have certified hundreds of thousands of people worldwide in our program, and we have continued to grow. So right now we have 5 active certifications, and we're adding 4 more this year. So it's a way that we are helping to elevate the entire industry, and it does apply on a global basis. So we're trying to create a global language of sourcing that if you're in an international company, whether you're sourcing out of Sweden, Egypt, London, California, New York, Mexico, you're all speaking the same language of sourcing, and you're all coming together with the same concepts. Because as you probably know, most people have learned their sourcing, whether it be through the Deloitte, method, or the A.T. Kearney method, or the Accenture method, et cetera. And everyone says it's slightly different, and yet we're all trying to get to the same outcome. So this creates a global language of sourcing for an organization, so that everybody is speaking from the same, or singing from the same songbook, if you will.
I love that notion as well, and cut through the noise, get rid of the jargon that's out there as well, which is so often overused. You said to yourself, $17 trillion in global spend is being managed by members of the network, practitioners that are part of the SIG network. What kind of responsibility does that come with?
It comes with a huge responsibility because, when I try and tell people that we literally have created a middle class in China through our outsourcing and manufacturing. That middle class wouldn't have existed if we hadn't taken the initiative to outsource. And yes, there are definitely some trade-offs with the fact that we did outsource so much manufacturing. But then we also outsourced so much of our IT and application development services to India and created a middle class that didn't exist. And what I try and get through to people is that we have literally changed lives. We've created a middle class that didn't exist. We've lifted people out of poverty. And so through how we source and responsibly source, we can push sustainability, through the value of the dollar, where a government and regulation might take years. And obviously, if you ever follow US politics, it's all infighting. And so we'll fight about it forever and never get regulations on the table as fast as someone can influence sustainability through how they source and what they expect of their suppliers. So we can help with the climate issues that we're facing. We can help gain sustainable sourcing. We can help gender equity through how we source, and we can literally lift people out of poverty. It's really, really powerful.
It's a super powerful role, and that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast. So I'm happy that you share the view, and thank you for sharing your views on how important it is as well that procurement and sourcing really leverage their power that they have. I mean, as someone that's adamant about the impact that procurement starts to challenge and get out of this savings bubble, so to say. I mean, every single year you see on the top trends for the year in various studies, cost savings still tops the list. Yeah, how does procurement get away from that?
Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to not have that just as a basic table stake. We're always going to be looking for waste.
Right.
But the way I see it is, and because I'm a bean counter, I can say this, if you're the CFO, you do budgets at the beginning of the year, and then you compare it to financial statements at the end and say, how did we do? And that's how you keep score. I see procurement as in the middle of all of that. I mean, we're seeing the waste, the redundancy, the stupidity as it's happening live, and we can impact play as it's happening real time and change the outcome that the CFO is going to see on the financials real time. So I think as soon as we can get that across to most organizations, that we are here to help you in that middle. You've got a budget. We want you to be successful, and we have an outcome we want to drive to. So how can we help you be more successful? And I think that's one of the flaws with a lot of folks in procurement is that they serve business units, but they don't study those business units. I've asked people, did you read your business unit strategic plan? And they'll say no. And I say, well, how do you know what they're after? A dollar's not a dollar. If they're after O&M savings, operation and maintenance savings, and you bring them capital savings, that's not the same dollar. It's not the same goal that they're trying to drive to. If they're trying to drive to quality and they need higher quality, they're not as worried about the almighty dollar. And they want quality driven, not just cost savings. So if you don't know the strategic plan of your business units, you can't make them successful. So we're only successful when our internal clients are successful. And so once we start communicating that we are here to help you drive success, I think it gains the respect. We have to learn to speak their speak. Procurement language does not translate across an organization any more than the CFO's language translates across the organization. So take procurement speak out of it, learn to speak like your business units, learn what's driving them, and make them successful. And with that, you'll gain their respect. And then they'll come to you earlier and earlier in every transaction that happens.
Anybody listening takes away with them from this session. As a network leader yourself, there's a fine line, of course, right, between facilitating the dialogue, but then also challenging the dialogue, as it sounds like you don't really have a problem with either of. How exactly do you find balance?
I think I have the obligation as an association, and everyone at SIG, we have the obligation to make you feel a little uncomfortable. Because if we wait and we don't force you to get the education or the understanding of how the world is changing, you're going to fail as a practitioner. So it is our responsibility, and our responsibility is not to make you feel warm and fuzzy. Let me make that clear. Our responsibility is to make you aware of what else you need to be aware of and what else you may not know right now, and make sure that that is brought to you and that you have no choice but to face it and accept it. So, if we did a live RPA demo at a summit 8 years ago now, when people were saying RPA is something that other people are going to do, it doesn't work in procurement. And over a 3-day period, working 24 hours a day with a group out of Poland, we were able to completely automate a procurement process for them, completely onboarding, going to 6 different systems. And this is for Honda of North America that did it as our guinea pig. And we had our screens up live. People were saying, oh, that's way down the road. No, it's here. It's here right now, and you should be using it. So, we bring 3D printers to the summit. We bring robots to the summits. We're always, we were delivering beer on golf courses via drone, 10 years ago already.
I think that's getting beer delivered in any format would probably work for a lot of people, but via drone is a lot more futuristic.
It's a little more fun having a drone and a landing pad.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So we just always are trying to make sure that you're seeing it, it's real and it's tangible, and you can touch it and feel it and talk about it, and it doesn't come as a surprise to you.
Which areas have you had to challenge procurement pros? Obviously, on the technology spectrum is one of those aspects. Automation. Is there any other areas where you've felt throughout the years you've really had to dig in and challenge the status quo of what procurement believes to be true today?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, and I preach this constantly, is you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what a certain vendor does, a new software provider does, you might be missing that perfect fit for your tech stack. So the thing that I can't stand the most is someone say, oh, my tech stack is all done. It's set. I don't need anything else. And to me, I hate to say it, you're a fool, because you don't know what else is out there, and it is changing so rapidly. So I that's something I just, if you can't tell me, what every single one of these technology vendors do in procurement, you don't know what you're missing. And so you might be missing something that is absolutely critical to your organization. And if you haven't looked, if they say, oh, I looked at so-and-so last year, well, so what? They've changed a lot in a year. All these technology providers change a lot in a year. So I think that is something that I struggle with constantly, trying to get people to realize they have to always be looking at the entire market. And the other one was AI. It was always down the road, and it's here, and it's been here for a while. And cognitive procurement is going to change, the future of procurement as well. So I think just getting people to realize that it's here, it's now, it's been here, and just accept it. And the other part is, a lot of people say it's like drinking out of a fire hose. And to that, I'd say yes. And the fire hose isn't going to slow down. So either you have to get a bigger mouth or swallow faster, because it's still going to keep coming. So you've got to find a way to adapt. And to adapt says you've got to constantly be willing to change and accept all of this change.
Very much so. I think that if you're willing to change, it's an incredibly exciting time. And it's been procurement and sourcing as a function is a role that's stood in front of a lot of change and transformation during the last few years that is just continuing in such a great way. We ourselves have had the pleasure of hosting Casper from Pactum AI as well. And to that effect, AI is definitely here. What they're doing over at Pactum is really awesome, as well as so many other vendors that are out there. I want to shift gears a bit away from the topic of technology to talk about another really important topic that I know is something that you are burning for: diversity, inclusion, and equity in procurement. Procurement is historically, as I like to call it, a function that's filled with white men in blue suits. This is definitely shifting. And as a female executive in the procurement industry, as we ourselves at Kodiak Hub also have a female founder and CEO of our Procure Tech our venture, what exactly do you believe is one of the biggest hurdles that you see to overcome in order to see more women in executive leadership roles in the function?
Yeah, I think it's our time, and I think it's starting to evolve. Different countries at different rates. Some countries it's not going to be there for decades still. We do work with the Coalition for Gender Fair Procurement, and Gender Fair. I don't know if you follow them, but it's a great organization. And the Coalition for Gender Fair Procurement was started by the CPO of Logitech. And he got with Gender Fair and said, we need a coalition of procurement folks, because using our dollars, we can help drive gender equity. And so companies that we do business with can be assessed by Gender Fair on, are they gender fair in their practices? Do they have women in all the leadership roles? Do they have pay equity and things like that? And then they can give them a score and tell them where they need to work to get better. So if you have someone like Logitech, you take their spend alone, they can influence their trading partners. But if you take all of procurement spend, we can influence all of our trading partners to start using gender fair, sources within their own organization and have that assessment done. I think the other side is supplier diversity. We're still struggling. We're just, in fact, finishing a huge study with supplier.io and on supplier diversity. And we still have a long ways to go there. And we have to understand that with the amount of spend worldwide that is spent on diverse organizations, it's not enough. And we have to start getting better at that. So both sides, both gender fair and equality within the workplace and equity, and then also supplier diversity, I think are two ways that we have to focus more as an organization and as a procurement organizations.
Well, there's a saying. I'm happy also first and foremost that you brought up Logitech, customer of ours, and David Lattin is actually been a previous guest on the show as well. That's an awesome episode. Yes, but an awesome episode that if anyone wants to go back and listen to that one as well. There's a saying in Swedish that in English translate to, kids of the same strokes play well together. Right. And this is always kind of that interesting fact is that one of the hurdles to be able to create diversity adversely in the supply chain, that the function has long last diversity in so many different ways. Do you think that diversity within the role could also lead to the lack of diversity in supplier bases globally?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that has happened, in a good way since the pandemic is that we don't have to only acquire talent that's local to where our business sits. So
no, we do not.
Yeah. And so we have the opportunity to bring in more diverse people into our organization. And with that, we get a diverse outlook. We get a diverse optimism that perhaps as a white woman or a white man, I may not be able to see how great another group is doing because I don't have that internally in me, but I can be taught that and I can have it brought to me by having a diverse organization. And so I absolutely do believe that the more diverse we can make our staff, the better off we will at supplier diversity and accepting all kinds of folks and, all kinds of communities into our organization.
That's a fantastic tip and a very concrete one. Do you have any other concrete tips that you see or you've seen other practitioners that are a part of your network implement in their organizations to be able to enhance equity, diversity, or inclusion either in their teams or in the supply chain?
Yeah, and I see a lot of groups that are purposely going out and trying to find a more diverse workforce. I just, in fact, had a call with L'Oreal, for example, and they're trying really, really hard to bring more diversity into their workforce because they represent a very diverse customer base. So why not have it within procurement as well?
Right.
So a lot of world-class companies are focusing on this, but the tone is set at the top. And if you have a CEO who doesn't care, you're not going to get the top-down support that you need. And if you have a CPO who is absolutely content being an old white male and comfortable with the people around him being all Caucasian or anything else, you're not going to be able to drive that supplier diversity. It takes the CPO, the modern CPO today, who understands and embraces diversity, who understand and embraces that we're not all the same, and that diversity of opinion, diversity of lifestyle, diversity of how we were brought up, diversity of where we live, where we went to school, everything adds tremendous value to the organization. And so you really have to set that tone at the top if you're a CPO or a CEO or a CFO where a CPO reports into you.
Fantastic insights, and I thank you for sharing so much of your own experience within this space, as well as then I'm sure based upon a lot of conversations that you've had with global leaders. It's super awesome insights for our listeners to be able to receive. I want to shift over to something that's a little bit of a lighter note so that we don't get to just know Dawn Tiura, the CEO of SIG, but also that we get to know you a bit as a person as well. And we like to do a little quick fire round with our guests. Quick questions, one word or one sentence answers. Don't think about it too much. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. If you could have any car in the world, it's paid off for you, which one is it?
Right now it's a Tesla, even though I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. I just have to add that caveat.
All right. All right. Caveat, check added. Dogs or cats?
Both.
All right. And I also saw your Bernese Mountain Dog walking around there in the back.
And the cat's over here. Yes. So I can't. He's listening. They're both listening. I can't choose.
Good. We'll make sure that they don't know who's the favorite.
That's right.
The last question. In Swedish, we have a word called paradrätt, means the kind of, how would I say, dish that you would treat just about anyone to that would come over to your house because you can impress them with it. It's your go-to dish. If I'm going over to dinner tonight, what would be your paradrätt that you would make, Dawn?
It would have to be my spaghetti bolognese.
Love a good spaghetti bolognese. And with that, we have to thank you so much for being on today's episode. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about the SIG organization, attend one of your events, please let them know. Where can they get in touch? Yeah,
so sig.org. Doesn't get any easier than that. sig.org. And you can click on events and get our event calendar all the way out through 2026, I believe. We have them already published. And you can register for any events there. And I'm just Tiura at sig.org and happy to reach out to me on LinkedIn or through email directly.
Super. Any exciting activities coming up during the spring and summer that people should know about, or fall of 2023?
Well, I just came back from 2 weeks in India. So I am on fire at the possibilities of taking SIG into India and SIG University into India. So that has me really excited. And then coming up, we have our Procurement Technology Summit, starting on April 16th in beautiful Amelia Island, Florida. So for those who want to get out of the cold, it guaranteed no snow at the beach. So come on down and get warm and open your mind up. And then we have events going on the whole rest of the year. We have our Midwestern event coming up, and then I'll be traveling to a lot of our vendor partners. So I've got Coupa Inspire still coming up. a lot of those are on the books. So I go to most of our large vendor events as well.
Well, I would urge anybody that is looking to attend a new event or looking to be a part of the SIG network to check out sig.org and get in touch with Dawn if you would like to learn more about what they're doing. Dawn, again, thank you so much for being on today's episode. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Sam. It's been fun talking with you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like the content, make sure to give us 5 stars and follow the podcast.